News on an impending signing for AEW. WWE is reportedly interested in an AEW star, plus AEW removes Wardlow from their roster after Dynamite this week. Paul White, could he be wrestling and returning to the ring on next week's Dynamite? All this and more in today's AEW news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. So let's start off talking about a possible signing for All Elite Wrestling. Now, he's been competing all over the place recently. Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, Progress as well. I'm talking about the Ring of Honor World Champion, I guess one of them, but the Ring of Honor World Champion, Jonathan Gresham. There is a belief within WWE that the Ring of Honor Champion will soon be signed to an All Elite Wrestling contract, or possibly a Ring of Honor contract, but they're the same thing, because of course Tony Khan owns both companies. Now this comes from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Now, there's been a lot of rumors, discussion, speculation on Jonathan Gresham's future ever since, of course, his Ring of Honor contract expired, or he was released from his Ring of Honor contract along with everyone on the ROH roster at the end of last year. Now, he didn't sign anywhere. Whilst he was appearing for Impact Wrestling initially and doing some indie shows, of course, he's got his Terminus promotion as well. There was a lot of discussion of, okay, where's he going to go? What's he going to do? Now, the report was at the time that Jonathan Gresham was keeping his options open, but particularly he was keeping his options open for Ring of Honor. He wanted to see what this new look Ring of Honor looked like when they came out of hiatus in April. Well, we're nearly at April now, and the new Ring of Honor looks completely different, or will look completely different, because it's owned by someone different. It's not owned by Sinclair Broadcasting anymore. It's owned by Tony Khan. And a lot of people have said, well, does that mean Jonathan Gresham's going to become All Elite? Does that mean he's going to sign a new Ring of Honor contract? What's going on when it comes to Jonathan Gresham? We do know he was backstage at an AEW Dynamite television taping a couple of weeks prior to the Ring of Honor purchase announcement by Tony Khan on Dynamite. And a lot of people at the time thought that he was backstage because he was going to sign an AEW contract, and that was going to be the case. It looks like now he was backstage because he was discussing things with the upcoming new Ring of Honor owner, that being Tony Khan. So this comes from the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and this kind of stems off Jonathan Gresham winning the Progress World Championship. The interesting and fascinating thing, and this is why I say that Jonathan Gresham's been everywhere recently, because you've got a guy right now in Jonathan Gresham who's the Progress World Champion. Of course, Progress has an affiliation with WWE. Their stuff goes on the WWE Network on Peacock. So you've got a guy that's holding their World Championship that is affiliated with WWE. At the same time, he's holding the Ring of Honor World Championship that's owned by the guy that owns AEW. Also, he's wrestling for Impact Wrestling. He wrestled at the most recent set of Philadelphia television tapings, and he's going to be wrestling at the upcoming Rebellion pay-per-view for Impact Wrestling as well. But the belief is that when Progress sends their shows to WWE, they will be editing out Jonathan Gresham's matches, since he is likely to be an AEW contracted guy very, very soon. So the belief certainly within WWE, and I guess Progress itself, that he's going to be under an AEW contract soon, and that means that he can't be on the WWE Network. And I'm not really sure how that works, considering that if he was at an event before he signed with AEW, and if it was, you know, a Progress event, then why does WWE, I guess, have a problem with that? I guess the issue might be is that if he's the Progress World Champion now, if he's going to go back and do future stuff with them whilst he's under that AEW contract, he then can't appear on WWE programming, even though it's not really WWE program, but it's on the network. That might be the situation. So that might be why they're having to edit him out of future footage. But we also have a further update when it comes to Jonathan Gresham's impending signing with AEW/Ring of Honor. Now, last week, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reported that sources had indicated that assets had been produced to indicate that AEW/Ring of Honor were bringing in Jonathan Gresham. He was going to sign a contract with, let's just say, Tony Khan, because we don't know specifically what company he was going to sign a contract to, but then essentially it's the same. If you've got a contract with Tony Khan, you're going to be on AEW or Ring of Honor, or possibly both. Now, Fightful have since confirmed that that is indeed the plan moving forward. Fightful has spoken to numerous sources who indicate the working plan as of right now is for Jonathan Gresham to sign with AEW/Ring of Honor, let's just say Tony Khan, to sign with Tony Khan, and noted that he is expected, though, to work AEW dates. dates. They've also heard that there were discussions to integrate Supercard of Honor into the announcement of the deal being made. However, that's far from confirmed. Now, Fightful has reached out to both Gresham and AEW officials, but they haven't gained confirmation from either one. Both sides have been very quiet on the situation, with Gresham continuing to work outside dates. Sources within Impact Wrestling have also indicated that he's not signed a contract with them and is expected to be in AEW very soon. What's quite curious, as I mentioned before, is that Jonathan Gresham is booked for the Rebellion pay-per-view, which is actually towards the end of April. So I don't know if it's a case of he's going to start appearing on AEW programming after Supercard of Honor, but still work his Impact dates. I don't know. I think maybe the reason that this has taken so long and this is taking a bit of extra time is because they're figuring out all of those dates. I think, as I mentioned before, I think you have to give him a ton of credit for a guy that's been keeping his options open. It just goes to show that sometimes when you're a pro wrestler, when your contract expires or you find yourself on the free agency list, some wrestlers, I suppose, can panic or can think, right, I've got to sign a contract with somewhere else. I'm hot right now. I'm only hot for a certain period of time. And then that can go away very quickly. I need to do something now. And Jonathan Gresham's kind of done the opposite and gone, no, I'm just going to work everywhere. I'm going to work everywhere and I'm going to wait. I'm going to see what happens. And what a perfect time for him. And whilst I do think he'll probably do some AEW dates because he's going to be the Ring of Honor, I'm assuming the undisputed Ring of Honor champion after Supercard of Honor, whilst he's going to do some AEW dates because, I mean, this just goes into how separate AEW and Ring of Honor is truly going to be. They're both going to be produced by Tony Khan. As far as I've seen, they're going to be kept as separate territories. There's obviously going to be an affiliation because it's the same guy booking and producing the shows. How similar they're going to look, where Ring of Honor is going to live in terms of television or streaming, we still don't know those answers. How much assistance Tony Khan's going to get in booking that show, we don't know. If it's going to be just a separate entity or if it's going to be a developmental sort of system for AEW, how much AEW crossover we're going to see, all of those questions we really don't know. I get the impression that Tony Khan signing Jonathan Gresham to a contract, and Jonathan Gresham's going to be the Ring of Honor guy, but whilst they're, for a lack of a better term, building up Ring of Honor, whilst they're promoting Ring of Honor, he'll be the guy that keeps appearing on both shows. A bit of the Rob Van Dam principle when WWE relaunched ECW in 2006. He was an ECW guy, but he was appearing on multiple shows. He was the WWE champion. I don't know, it's a different situation, but he was appearing on multiple shows to make sure that people watched ECW. And I think that's going to be a situation. But I think eventually he'll live on the Ring of Honor brand, or he'll move over completely to AEW. I mean, what this all looks like, we still really don't know. This is still a really curious situation. I don't think they're going to go down the same route that WWE did when they purchased WCW, and it's just not going to exist. We know it's not, actually, because there's a Ring of Honor pay-per-view next week, which again is fascinating. Just another match was announced earlier today, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, I think. So it's curious. I think Jonathan Gresham's a great signing, certainly a great signing for AEW. I think, as is the case with any signing at the moment with AEW, I think there has to be somewhat of a concern of, there's a lot of people on that roster, and you can get lost in the shuffle. Look, we've seen people debut recently, and it's a valid point with AEW. I mean, it fundamentally is that you have these people debut, and not to say that they're not doing anything, but I do look at, say, Keith Lee or Swerve Strickland, and they initially come in and it's exciting, but they're on Rampage. And look, it's the third hour of Dynamite, but it's the B show, and it's a significantly less watched show, and that's because of the time slot and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but that's a big roster, and they're struggling to fit people in. And you do sometimes. Jay Lethal had a great match this week on Dynamite with Adam Cole, but the guy, made his debut in November at Full Gear, had a match against Sammy Guevara, and then just didn't do much. He was on Dark Elevation, and I think that's where Ring of Honor is going to be so valuable. Is this? They've got this giant roster of talent that I think just a lot of people are saying, you know what, you're struggling to get time on AEW television because it's such prime real estate. Go to Ring of Honor for 6 months. Get over. If you get over there, we'll bring you back. And I think that's the right thing to do. And I think it's actually going to be a really fortuitous thing for AEW. And I think it's a fortuitous thing that Tony Khan's kind of stumbled on, actually. So I think that's going to be something to really keep an eye out on. We spoke yesterday about Ethan Page. Of course, he's re-signed with AEW. Only made his debut with the company last year, but he's re-signed with AEW, a multi-year contract extension. But reportedly, WWE is very, very high on Ethan Page, on All Ego, and does have an interest in signing him possibly in the future. WWE reportedly has a high level of interest in signing AEW star Ethan Page at some point in the future, according to Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men Pro Wrestling podcast. Now, while discussing the report of Page recently inking a contract extension, which of course we spoke about yesterday, with AEW, Zarian noted that WWE officials are keeping a close watch on the former tag team partner of Josh Alexander. He said, quote, "By the way, Ethan Page is another dude that WWE is very high on. They like Ethan Page's whole deal, and I think he's super hyper talented. Not just super talented or hyper talented, he's super hyper talented, folks. I know that Ethan Page has re-signed and he's there for a while, but I know for a fact there are eyes on him for sure because he's a guy who's a good-looking guy and can cut a great promo. He has that TV look, so you've got to keep a guy like that happy, especially now that he's re-signed with you. You've got to do something with him." Now, Zarian has previously reported on WWE's interest in names such as MJF, Wardlow, and Jade Cargill. Just like Page, those wrestlers have several years left on their current AEW deals. Now, I kind of spoke about this, I think, yesterday when I spoke about Jericho saying that Cody had indeed gone back to WWE, even though we know he has, but Jericho confirming that. Those names that WWE is interested in, I am 100% sure that there are several names on the AEW roster that they are interested in because AEW's got a very young roster and they'll be looking at AEW as competition, certainly, but also a case of like with WCW, there'll be names going, "I tell you what, we would really like to have them here." It's fascinating because all of those names at some point, I think, did receive tryouts for WWE and they said no, or those people turned them down for whatever reason. I mean, the video for, like, say, MJF doing the Tough Enough video is out there and occasionally gets recommended to you on your YouTube feed. Wardlow, I'm not sure if Wardlow did have tryouts. I'd be shocked if he didn't with WWE. We know Jade Cargill did, and she was offered a contract, and it came down to a situation where they questioned how much she really wanted it. She's got a child. Would she be willing to commit? She said, "Yes, I am," but they weren't sure, and then AEW made her an offer. I have no doubt that WWE is absolutely interested in Jade Cargill, 100%. I have no doubt they're very interested in Wardlow. Same with MJF, because these are all people that have great looks, and they're young, and they're bona fide superstars. Do I see Jade Cargill going to WWE? I mean, look, I never used to think that Cody Rhodes was going to go to WWE, so who knows what could happen. But Jade Cargill, probably no. Wardlow has said that he'd stay in AEW for the remainder of his career. MJF's doing the whole thing at the moment. I'm not signing a thing until my contract expires. I know WWE wants me. You know what I do think with MJF, and I know some people will say, "Oh, you know, you're falling for it and all that kind of stuff." I wouldn't be shocked when it came to him because I get the impression he's of the Cody Rhodes, school of business. I think he believes in his abilities, and I think he thinks that he can get over anywhere. Can he beat MJF in WWE? I don't know. But I don't know. I honestly, I buy into what MJF is saying. I really, really do. And I think he's smart. I think he's very smart. When it comes to Ethan Page, I don't think he'd go to WWE. But look, he's another one. I mentioned it earlier on with Jonathan Gresham and people like Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. Ethan Page came in last year, and I think a lot of people expected him. I did, to come into AEW after leaving Impact. Wasn't and still not massively hot on the whole Men of the Year tag team. I enjoyed the match they had with Sting and Darby at Double or Nothing last year, but he's not been wrestling a ton. Last wrestled on the March 4 edition of Rampage, lost to Christian Cage. That was the Face of Revolution qualifying match. Hasn't wrestled on Dynamite since his loss to then TNT champion Sammy Guevara. That was in October. So those Dynamite spots, as I mentioned, they're pristine and prime real estate. And he would be another one that I think would actually probably benefit from going to Ring of Honor, working as a single. So he's not be working as much in a tag team really anymore because Scorpio Sky is the TNT champion. I think legitimately, and I said this before in an Impact video I did recently, that I think the hope was that they would sign Ethan Page. Josh Alexander would become a free agent in February of this year, and they would sign Josh Alexander, then they'd have the North in AEW, and then that would be added to their fantastic tag team division, which is the best tag team division in the world. I don't think anyone can argue with that. And I think they then hoped that you were going to get the North versus FTR, the North versus the Hardys, the North versus the Young Bucks, the North versus the Lucha Brothers. I could go on and on and on of the matches. I think that was the hope. But Josh Alexander's not going anywhere. He's staying in Impact. He's a main event guy in Impact Wrestling. He's going to be the next Impact World Champion. And now it's a case of, okay, what do we do with Ethan Page? He's got a great look. I don't think we've seen near enough the promo he can cut. The promos he used to cut in Impact Wrestling were phenomenal, and I don't think he's been given anywhere near enough mic time. Like I said, I think that's where ROH should come into it. I think he should go to ROH, get a ton of time on the mic, and get over, and then come back to AEW red hot. And I think that might be what happens with him. Wardlow, as I mentioned, Wardlow was removed from the roster page of the AEW website. A nice little continuation of the storyline that's happening on television. Now, of course, on Dynamite this week, MJF declared that Wardlow would be forced to sit out the remainder of his contract. The story has continued with AEW removing Mr. Mayhem from their roster page of the official website because he doesn't have an AEW contract. He has an MJF contract, which has pleased MJF greatly. Where this is going, I would assume that this is going to a situation where Wardlow's off TV for a couple of weeks, then eventually his contract expires, he comes back. Or it's a case of, Wardlow just keeps showing up, coming through the crowd, attacking MJF. Maybe they'll do that direction. I've said before that this feels very Triple H. Shout out to Triple H, who of course retired today. But I felt it was very Triple H Batista-esque, and my only, like I said, my only sort of gripe about it is I just felt like that moment of Wardlow finally turning on MJF maybe shouldn't have been lost in that dog collar match. I get it that it was the finish, and I get that there was a pay-per-view, but I just, for instance, how Batista and, turning his back or finally breaking free, shall we say, of Evolution, that was a TV main event segment. That's how they went off the air, and people were talking and people were buzzing. That's not how Revolution went off the air. And at the end of that just segment, people were talking about CM Punk, not necessarily Wardlow. And I just felt like Wardlow deserved more of the spotlight. If they'd have made that a TV main event segment, people would have been talking about Wardlow. And that's the whole point. The eyes are meant to be on him. And maybe that segment will come. Maybe they will just say, look, Wardlow sort of backs down a little bit and says, look, while I'm under contract or whatever. Or maybe we'll have that segment and he goes, oh, by the way, Max, what's the time? Oh, it's near the top of the hour. My contract expired. Or I made my debut on this date however many years ago. It was in 2019, or I think it was. That time's up. Now my contract's... Something like that. Maybe that's how they do it. But the guy's a star. There's no doubt the guy's a star. Finally, Paul White... He's going to be wrestling on Dynamite. He's going to make his Dynamite in-ring debut next week. Speaking of the Rob Brown Show Thursday, Paul White expressed his desire to wrestle a match on next week's Dynamite, which will be held in his hometown of Columbia, South Carolina. White revealed he's been asking AEW CEO Tony Khan to book him into a match. He said, quote, I'm really hoping that a lot of fans will come out and experience AEW and see the difference. Myself, I'm talking to Tony Khan. I can't exactly go and book myself, but I'm trying real hard to get a match going so I can at least wrestle in my hometown in Columbia. I'm looking forward to competing that night. If not, I'll definitely be there doing Elevation and doing commentary. Now, Paul White last wrestled for AEW in October of last year on Dark Elevation, where he won a 3-on-1 handicap match. He's only wrestled 3 matches in AEW since joining the company. Of course, the first one, his pay-per-view one, was against QT Marshall at All Out last year. I watched that last, and the other one was a 3-on-1 handicap match on the Grand Slam edition of Dark Elevation. I did watch that last 3-on-1 handicap match he had in October last year. Look, and I'll be honest, and maybe Paul White will get back in the ring on next Wednesday because it's in his hometown and he'll do a squash, but that last 3-on-1 handicap match he did, go back and watch it on YouTube, it's painful. It is painful to watch. And not in the sense that, he looks great. Obviously, he's thinner than he was in his career, but he's got his hips fixed and all that kind of stuff, and he went through hell, and I think he deserves a ton of credit. Even at his age, for his size to be in the ring is unbelievable, but you can tell that his knees, I would not be shocked, and I'm speculating here, and maybe I shouldn't, but I wouldn't be shocked if he needs a knee replacement or something like that, or both. And he looked like he was, struggling. And he's still a giant. He's the Giant still. That's a WCW name, but he's still, he's the Andre the Giant legacy, and he needs to be protected as such. But Whether or not he'll have a match next week, I don't know. But what I will say, though, is I think he does a great job on Dark Elevation. He doesn't do color commentary, he does play-by-play. It reminds me of very much Gorilla Monsoon. I think he's got that kind of feel to him as a guy that was successful in the ring. People forget of Gorilla Monsoon as one of the best play-by-play men of all time, but also this was a guy that was a really accomplished wrestler, amateur and pro. And I think Paul White has the same. He's got a great commentary voice, and he does a really good job. And I think I'd love to see him on Rampage as opposed to, Dark Elevation. I think Excalibur's way too overexposed in terms of the amount of commentary he does. And Paul White would be great for that. I really do think that. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.